How did we come to this bipedal posture that is good for locomotion but so bad for giving birth? Well, there are a couple of theories, and I'll just scoot over the one that I don't really agree with, because that's just the way that academic arguments work when I'm the one in front of the camera. The first one is the savanna theory, and the savanna theory effectively says that we found ourselves on the African plain, we adopted a bipedal gait because what that meant was that we could actually see predators and so on. That's fine, that works, because we do stand upright, we can see predators. What it doesn't account for is the intermediate stages, from the chimpanzee 3-4-legged walk to the human bipedal walk. In the intermediate stages were, in fact, the locomotion was very, very clumsy. So you're kind of shuffling along. So great, you've seen the predator, but you can't run away because you haven't yet developed the locomotor skills to do so. So I don't think that really works as a theory. Nonetheless, in fairness, I need to say, in the context of this podcast, that is the theory that most people accept. The theory that I most favour is the aquatic ape hypothesis. This is a hypothesis that effectively says at some point in our evolutionary past, what happened was that we're in the forest, we're in the place where we evolved, and it got wet, and it got very wet. It got so wet that what was happening was that we were left swimming around in the water. Okay, so if there was a flood, for example, then the gorillas would take the higher ground, the chimpanzees would take the trees, and because we were the smallest and the weakest of the lot, what would happen is that we'd find ourselves splashing around in the bottom. Cut to 1 million years later, and what you see is that our species becomes fully adapted as a semi-aquatic animal.
This is where the human story began, millions of years ago, in the heart of Africa. But how it began remains something of a mystery. There's a gap in the fossil record when we can only guess what was going on. The gap in our knowledge lasts from roughly 4 million to 7 million years ago. We know that apes went into it and ape men came out of it, but that's all we do know. Oh, and the ape men, of course, when they came out of it, we know what happened to them. There aren't any missing links in the popular sense. We can trace our ancestry back for over 3 million years. And we can see how those ape men turned into modern men. But back in that very early formative stage, that's when the picture becomes vague. Why did we shed our coat of fur, stand up on our hind legs, and start to talk?
To understand why this took place, we need to discover where it took place.
Perhaps it all happened here on the open savanna. The traditional view, and it's only a guess, is that our ancient ancestors left the cover of the forest and moved out onto the open plains in pursuit of large prey animals.
Once in open country, they had to face a hot, dry, exposed environment. How did they adapt to it? Other animals that live in hot, dry environments have evolved special survival mechanisms that reduce their water loss. Surprisingly, we have none of these. We have to drink more than any other land mammal, we sweat more than any other mammal, and we die quickly if we overheat. We have dilute urine and moist dung. These 5 qualities contrast strongly with the water economy of the typical savanna-living animals. The truth is that we're simply not well adapted to savanna living. So what did we do when we left the protection of the undergrowth? The traditional view of how ape became ape-man has recently been challenged.
It's thought that there might have been a vital intermediate stage. Instead of coming out of the forest and straight onto the open grasslands, the idea is that our remote ancestors went instead to the water's edge. There they went more and more into the water, becoming what you might almost call an aquatic ape.
Newborn babies, under careful supervision, can swim without any training. Placed in a prone position in warm water, they show no panic, keep their eyes wide open, and automatically hold their breath. Champion breath holders can hold their breath for up to 3.5 minutes underwater. This and the swimming ability of the newborn are, to say the least, strange qualities for a savanna-living animal. There are a number of other aquatic features of our species. We have an unusually strong diving reflex that slows down our heartbeat when we put our face underwater. Like other aquatic mammals, but no other primates, we have a layer of blubber beneath our skin. We've lost the long, shaggy coat of other primates, making us more streamlined in the water. We have a unique nose shape that shields our nostrils when we dive below the surface. We have more flexible spines than other apes, enabling us to swim more rapidly. We have partial webbing between our fingers and toes, again, unlike any other primate.
And most people are surprised to learn that anatomical records reveal that even today, 7% of the world's population of humans still have webbed toes, where a small piece of tissue connects the toes along their full length. We weep copious tears, like other marine animals, but unlike apes. We can swim with great athleticism. Apes cannot swim at all. And the directions of our hair tracts differ from those of other apes, following the flow of the water. Assembled in this way, the evidence for the aquatic origin of our species certainly looks impressive. If this human baptism took place, it probably occurred here on the estuaries of the East African coast. One of the effects of moving into the water for these aquatic apes would have been to find immediately a wonderfully nutritious source of food, a new kind of food, a change from the fruits of the forest to the fruits de mer.
These small boys in Kenya's Rift Valley are behaving rather like otters, catching fish without the aid of any weapons. They're living today in the very region where the human species evolved. Could this have been the preferred way of life of our early ancestors several million years ago? A switch to an aquatic lifestyle would suddenly have made available a high-protein diet that would have reduced the amount of time they had to spend finding food. This would have given them more opportunities for other activities, activities that could have led them to develop important new skills. Their ancient ability to open tough nuts and fruits would have made them immediately adept at cracking open the hard shells of a great deal of easily collected seafood. Marine mollusks and crustaceans would have had no protection from the attacks of this new type of predator. They were a plentiful food supply just waiting to be exploited. Furthermore, a diet of fish and shellfish would have provided the aquatic apes with an enriched source of the fatty acids that are important for brain development. An aquatic ape could easily have become a more brainy ape. These are the amazing Muru Army divers of the Philippines. Each member of a large team of young male divers lowers a rock attached to a long line down to the seabed. Strips of white material scare the fish, and as the lines are moved along with their rocks repeatedly banging on the reefs below, they drive all the fish before them into an enormous net. Once all the fish are in the net, the young divers descend without any breathing apparatus to a depth of 80 feet, where they may stay for up to 3 minutes.